I bought this in high school. It would have been right around 1994-ish, give or take a little bit there. It was worth about $300 at the time. I didn't have $300, but a friend of mine in high school had that card, and I literally put it on layaway with my friend, and my parents gave me $3 a day for lunch. I paid him $3 a day every day and didn't eat lunch until Christmas came around, and then I actually got some Christmas money, paid him off, got the card. But yeah, years later, then
It worked out pretty well for you. Lunch money
Right, yeah,
for
no.
PSA 7 Jordan rookie.
I highly doubt he still has the $300. So,
Yeah.
especially since I was paying him in quarters half the time. Hey, what's up? This is Dan McCabe here with Erik Sjolie, and we are Collectors Club AI. And interesting topics going on right now, Erik, around the whole grading concept. So I know we wanted to jump in and talk about that a little bit. I thought before we did, I would share the very first card that I ever got graded, before I knew grading was a thing. And I know I've told you about this card before, but I don't know if you've ever seen it. This is a classic. This is the
Oh, yeah.
86, 87 Jordan rookie card. Oh, I was covering the grade there, but it's a PSA 7. So old
That's a
label and
good
everything.
one.
I graded this thing probably 20 plus years ago with PSA. Interesting story how I got this card. I'm pretty sure I told you this story. So I bought this in high school. It would have been right around 1994-ish, give or take a little bit there. It was worth about $300 at the time. I didn't have $300, but a friend of mine in high school had that card, and I literally put it on layaway with my friend, and my parents gave me $3 a day for lunch. I paid him $3 a day every day and didn't eat lunch until Christmas came around, and then I actually got some Christmas money, paid him off, got the card. But yeah, years later, then
It worked out pretty well for you. Lunch money
Right, yeah,
for
no.
PSA 7 Jordan rookie.
I highly doubt he still has the $300. So,
Yeah.
especially since I was paying him in quarters half the time. But I got that card graded with PSA, and I know we want to talk about grading here a little bit. I don't know if you have anything you want to jump in on before we get into that conversation, but you know, the state of grading right now is getting kind of weird.
It's a really unique time in the grading for the sports card hobby, or just the hobby in general. Very unique time. Obviously, the demand is through the roof. So you're seeing multiple companies take some extreme measures, and a lot of conversation. I've personally had a lot of conversation on what the fallout's going to be from the stance that like PSA and I know even Tag has taken, and what the fallout's going to be and the ripple effect in the hobby for the next, let's say, 3, 6, 12 months. Not only in card values, grading, the idea of grading. You know, I know a lot of people have had grading fatigue. You hear that word used a lot in the hobby. And I wonder if this will just finally be the final push to break the dam wide open on that. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Before we dive into that conversation, do you want to recap what happened here in the last week or two that is causing this conversation in the first place?
You know, so PSA, let's talk. They're the king of the mountain here. Obviously, you see it. They are the standard in the industry. They have a grip hold on the grading and really the values. Everyone wants their cards, for the most part, in a PSA slab. They retain the highest resell. Breakers, resellers, you go to a card show, they demand the highest value. So with that, their demand was high. I mean, people were sending in a substantial amount of cards. With all the breakers, wax has been huge. People would rip packs and just immediately submit to PSA. You know, and they had their bulk discounting where you could get in, I think, as low as $25 a card, and people were shipping them off. Last couple of years, that demand has continued to grow and increase. So PSA has done a number of measures. One, you know, there was multiple price increases over the last year. But the other one, which is I know the big thorn in everyone's side, is the delay in the waiting period. So, you know, it used to be, 30, 60 days, 90 days. You know, now people are looking at 6, 9 months to get cards back. So PSA kept trying to pull these levers just to try to slow down demand. Hey, we're going to raise prices and we're going to push out timelines. Didn't work. I mean, cards just kept getting submitted at record pace.
Yeah.
So PSA finally said, hey, we've got to do something drastic. I think they saw the writing on the wall here with their backlogs. They have something like millions of cards in backlog that they're trying to
Over
push
10
through.
million.
Yeah, so they have substantial amount. So they finally came out and said, "Hey, we're going to cut off our certain lower level grading services right now completely. We're not going to take submissions." So they had, in Cards HQ and Burbank Cards, they had these in-house PSA shops where you could submit right on the spot. Those places basically, temporarily shut down for now. They're not taking submissions either.
Are they not taking submissions at all, or just not the bulk submissions?
The last video I saw with Burbank is he said right now it's not operational. Now maybe I misunderstood, but I think it just because they're not doing the bulk, maybe it's not because PSA staffs those. Maybe it's not in their best interest to
Oh,
staff
sure.
people when they're not doing bulk submissions. So what it is now, if you look at PSA, the starting price is $79, right? So $79 to submit to PSA on a card. So what is this going to do? What's the ripple effect? So last time we saw during COVID, you saw SGC really take a climb, Beckett take on some of that submissions. But the interesting time this time around is both of those companies are owned by the same company that owns PSA. So it's going to be curious to see how that plays out. There's CGC, who you and I both know has made a strong push to try to crack into the sports card marketplace. A lot still to be determined there. They're bigger players on the authentication, autograph, and non-sports trading TCG side. So it'll be interesting to see where this flow goes, or if people just say, hey, we're going to pause on just grading cards in general right now, especially some of the lower level. I mean, people were just, sending anything in to get graded, base stuff and all of that. But if you look right now, I mean, it does not make sense to send a card into PSA unless you think it's roughly, $1,000 or more probably, right? To spend $80 to grade a card. You're not going to do that on a $50, $100, $200 card. It just doesn't make sense economically there. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how this all plays out. So PSA took that drastic step. This was a couple of weeks ago.
I think it was officially like they made the announcement like a week and a half ago, and I think June 3rd it went into effect, if
Yeah.
I recall.
Yeah, I know a lot of the
I
local
remember,
shops are like, hey, get your submissions in now. We have one
yeah,
final push here.
and we'll get you your cards back in a year. Like they're
I
gonna
thought
be a
about putting a
lot.
submission in, and I thought the same thing. I said, oh, with this rush, it's going to be 12 to 18 months. You're not going to see those cards for. So
Right.
I decided not to do that.
I did do a quick search here while you were talking, and I didn't check Cards HQ. Burbank is still taking submissions, but they can
Oh,
only
they are?
take the
Okay.
tiers that are available.
So I
So
misspoke on that.
yeah, no, just might as well get the correct information out there the best we can, anyways. And they're expecting this shutdown to be 3 to 4 months. Now, I was talking to another guy about this a couple days ago. He's another big collector, a big vintage collector, and he was asking about SGC. And let's just put out there that these are kind of our opinions and what we see going on. But I know you and I both watched the
100%.
grading reports of what's getting graded. And you got PSA's kind of the big daddy of all of them, and then but CGC's been climbing, and they were sitting around 30% of total sports cards graded, which was a huge deal for them. The fact that anybody was starting to creep up on PSA, but the valuations just haven't, moved up at the exact same pace. SGC and Beckett were really just kind of tapering off, and I've been of the mindset for a while. I thought SGC, as much as I loved SGC, I got tons of SGC graded cards sitting around here. I mean, this is a box that I got back from the last SGC submission that I did. I like the way the vintage cards looked inside of the SGC slabs, but they really slowed down the amount of cards they're grading every single week. And this just was kind of my own thought from this conversation I had especially with vintage. I know when we were down in Dallas, you bought that Hank Aaron rookie card in a brand new Beckett slab. So PSA takes over Beckett. Beckett gets a new slab. Beckett always had like the number 2 name in grading aside from PSA, just name wise, not necessarily submission wise. But could right now PSA being like, we're not taking bulk, thinking that people are going to start submitting to Beckett more, which they own, which they just created new slabs for. I don't think SGC is a player here. I feel like they're just kind of an afterthought right now at this point. But could shutting down their bulk submissions be an opportunity for them to boost their other company, Beckett?
Yeah, and there's a lot of thought behind that, and I think there's something to consider there because they run these companies completely separate. By the way, so I know people think, oh, it's all graded out of the same area. It's not. So even though the master company owns PSA, Beckett, they're still run somewhat independently from each other, location wise, and all the above. And yeah, I remember when Beckett was purchased, the fear was the master company was going to do the same thing that everyone was seeing what they're doing to SGC, which was almost like sunsetting it. It seemed like they were just, throttling it down so much that they just wanted the name to go away. And that's what everyone's fear in the hobby was with Beckett, because Beckett carries such a significant name. I mean, myself, collecting in the 80s and 90s,
Oh
getting
yeah.
that Beckett magazine, it's just, and
Yeah,
that was
boxes of them
the,
back there.
no, exactly. So everyone was really worried about that, but you're right. The timing was very unique with Beckett coming out with their new slabs, their new logo, their new anti theft or anti copyright materials on their slabs, and then PSA making this announcement. Is this a way to try to reroute some of that? And they're confident it'll just go to Beckett over some of their other competitors that are out in the marketplace. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I know Beckett still has a lot of love. Obviously, their values still trail PSA values in a slab from a resale market, and that gap kind of widened over the last year or two. So it'll be interesting to see what takes place there over the next 3 to 6 months.
I haven't looked in a while. I've never really graded with Beckett. I know a lot of people do, and a lot of collectors grade all over the
Subgrades,
place.
baby.
I was what's that?
The subgrades, it's a big deal. Everyone loves the subgrades at
Right.
Beckett.
Yeah, people do like that. I've always kind of been on the outside where this was just me, and I know there's other people that feel like me, and it's been explained to me now in ways that I'm starting to feel like I understand a little bit better. But I always felt like there was a conflict of interest inside of grading when the amount they could charge you could change based on the grade that they gave you. And
Yep.
there was something just always felt inherently wrong about that with me, which is why I was never really big on sending a lot of cards to PSA. I sent some, like the Jordan I showed you. That's what I liked about SGC, and I was grading a lot with SGC for a while, especially since I have a lot of vintage stuff, and I thought it looked good, and it was kind of one price across the board. I got them back quickly. The customer service was good, but now SGC is looking like they're definitely treading water at best right now. And then we got
And you see it in the resale
CBC,
market.
what?
The slab pricing has dropped considerably on SGC pricing than it used to be from a gap comparison to a PSA.
Right. Which all of that is kind of weird to me. I mean, even you pull in an SGC or a CGC or a Tag or a lot of these other companies that are out there right now, why there's such a big gap in the grade and the price. I would love for somebody, I mean, if somebody watches this video and they want to put in the comments like why there's such a huge disparity in price, I'd like to know, because SGC was grading harder, in my opinion, than PSA. If I got an SGC 9, it was typically looked like a nicer version of that card than a PSA 9. But yet the PSA 9 would sell more,
Yeah.
which just didn't make sense to me. So it's the same thing with CGC. I mean, a lot of these companies are using graders, like the graders that actually grade inside of these companies, from what I can tell, they switch between companies here and there. It's a lot of the same graders bouncing back and forth, getting offers. I mean, I guess I'm not going to say names necessarily, but I know that top grading companies steal top graders from other grading companies. Like, this happens. That's just normal real world business stuff that is going to happen. So it's the same grading. I wonder what causes the price differential so much.
Yeah, I mean that's just the open market. I mean, to speak on what you just said, I can confirm that I had the benefit of actually touring CGC in Florida, and I know you did as well. But I
Yep.
went last December and met with the folks there, listened to kind of their business plan, because they do have a plan to really crack the sports card market. They're really big on the TCG side, and that's really been a focus for them. They know that's an area for growth for them, and they see opportunity there. But when touring the area, it just I would assume it's not much, without going into details. I would assume it was not much different than PSA. Now I know what I hear out in the hobby is, CGC, green lights a lot of 9 and 10s. They just push a lot of stuff through to get good grades, because, much like you were saying, PSA charges differently. CGC's motive is they want to be loved and liked in the marketplace. They're trying to get people to have good experiences. So the community is fearful that they are being a little bit more lenient on grading right now, just to try to get people to come back to them and grade more cards. Like, oh man, I cracked this 6 from a PSA, and I just got a 9 at CGC. And you've seen people, the variance between the
Yeah.
companies could be pretty drastic. I know you've seen those YouTubes of some of these people that have sent the same card in to all the major ones, and
Yeah.
it's a 2 or 3 grade difference between 4 companies, 5 companies. So it can be drastic. So the market has just made PSA the standard. I mean, that's just really the standard of what it's at, and all values kind of fall from there from a percentage of. One of the things I saw in Dallas was there's still a lot of work for CGC to do. Speaking of CGC, outside the big 3, from a sports card side, it's people are running from it right now, and I don't get it because I love their slabs. I think they look fantastic. I have sent a decent amount of cards to CGC to get some of my PC stuff slabbed there, but I could see from a reseller standpoint, if you were slabbing to resell, it would just be tough because the pricing and the resale pricing just isn't there. And for whatever reason, collectors are just following the herd mentality, and because so-and-so said it's not good, let's just all steer clear of it. And that's you're actually seeing that in the marketplace, which also means there's good value out there too.
Yeah, I mean, they've been around for 20 plus years doing comic books, and I think they've got a little bit more credibility around the TCG side of things than the sports card world. But hopefully, just with the volume that they're doing right now, and they're not backing off from this PSA announcement. They're still taking bulk submissions.
Correct.
Collectors, dealers need to send cards somewhere for grading. Right now, their options are Beckett, SGC, and CGC, really, because right after PSA made that announcement, I realized this is just the weirdness of the algorithm that I see on X or whatever social media. I literally saw the official PSA announcement about their discontinuing bulk services or pausing bulk services, and then 2 posts down was the tag announcement.
Yeah.
And so I just saw it in that quick sequential order, and I'm just like,
weird timing for tag. You had one shot to maybe get some market share, and they followed. So they're obviously having their own scaling issues as well. I don't know all the details there. They're not a huge player, but I know they have a cult following for some people. They love the AI, grading. But yeah, it was just really weird timing for that, and I agree with you. It was just right then and there they decided to come out and just piggyback PSA's announcement.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a joke at first.
Yeah.
I'm like, how? I mean, in tag is I don't understand. I have never graded with tag. I remember talking.
They're AI, so they use AI,
Right.
not human graders. They use AI graders.
So what's
the
their
idea.
issue with volume? Because I guess that's the other question that a lot of us, normal people would have for these companies. You got a 10 million card backlog. What's the issue with scaling your operation? I mean, isn't that what you would want to do? I mean, I would assume with the kind of money that they're dealing with and that they're talking about, maybe it's like getting another site. Maybe it's not that simple because of the security you need. Maybe there's just a lot of logistics to go into it. I'm not sure, but I would think somewhere in there you'd figure out a way to hey, we got this big backlog. We got one shot right now to make a crap ton
Yeah, I
of
think it's a
money.
number of things. I think one, just anything business, you don't want to overscale because then if the market slows down, you're in big trouble. Obviously, if you create a lot of overhead. PSA has opened up in the last number of years locations like in Europe and in Japan to try to alleviate some of the pressure here in the States. I know they are actively expanding, so they are investing quite a bit of money to expand. I'm speaking specifically to PSA. But also this might be a collective situation just to not oversaturate the market. Maybe they see data points that we're not, aware of. And maybe there's just concerns of oversaturation too. I mean, that could be, part of it as well is, hey, we don't want to oversaturate this. That'll cause longer issues in the hobby and for them, 10, 20 years down the road than if we grow this at a healthy pace. Yeah, I don't know the full details of that because you're right. From an outsider, it's just like, man, you're making all this money. Just go hire more people and keep pumping.
Right.
But obviously, it's not that easy, or else they would do that. So I think there's a lot more different things at play. Stepping back to that CGC real quick, because one of the other things I don't think a lot of people know is a number of years back, CGC acquired JSA, right? One of the big authenticators as well. So they have that built in. And if you look at their slabs on like an autograph, you'll have CGC, and then I'll have a co-branded, the JSA Authentication. And I know their autographs actually go through a different department to authenticate, much like PSA DNA has their different department as well. So that's just a nice thing with the CGC. But I did want to touch on this because it also just speaks on numbers, but also, looking at the details a little bit more. And you and I always, I know we share these things all the time. When you get these reports of like items graded by carriers, and to show one, where the carriers are at, but then I think some additional details I think we should discuss here is important because this really leads to the question of where is grading going to go and where are people placing their business and how is this going to affect values and the hobby moving forward. So I just pulled up, you can get these grading specs here, and this one's from April, so it's a month or two old. But for the month, PSA graded 2.21 million cards in April. CGC was second at 690,000. So what is that? Roughly 30% or so. I don't know, roughly right around there. Beckett was at 97,000. SGC was 50,000 and Tag was 48,000. So SGC and Tag were almost, neck for neck there. Beckett was twice as much, and then CGC was, quite a bit more in second place with PSA a huge lead. But here's the details I think is really important, and this also speaks about the hobby in general. If you look at the sports cards that were graded, so of that 2.21 million in April that PSA graded, 690,000 was sports cards. So that means only 25% of what they graded was actually sports cards, which blew me away because I thought it was a much higher number. CGC graded 690,000 cards in that April. Only 85,000 was sports cards.
It's all TCG.
So it's all TCG is what they're doing. So Pokemon, One Piece, Deep Friends, Magic the Gathering, all those things are really making up the other ones. Beckett did 97,000 cards. 29,000 was sports cards for Beckett. SGC did 50,000 cards.
In a Beckett slab.
Yeah, SGC did 50,000. 47,000 was sports. So almost all of their grading is sports. Hardly any. And then Tag did 48,000. Guess how many sports cards they had? 3,000. 3,000. 3,000 cards is all they graded sports.
Yeah, the sports guys aren't using Tag right now.
So, so like of the 690,000 CGC graded, 604 was TCG. Wow. And PSA, 1.52 million was TCG. So one, let's reroute here. That's how heavy the TCG market is right now from a grading standpoint, flooding the grading market. Sports was, let's say 25% of grading is actually sports. But then the more details is, so CGC has an authentication agreement with Fanatics, where they authenticate some of the Fanatics cards that Fanatics sells on their site. My question, I don't know the answer to this, is that included in those numbers, you think? So when CGC says they graded 690, you're like, man, they're making great leeway. Oh, but only 85,000 was sports. Was a chunk of that actually like corporate Fanatics? And that means how many people are actually sending cards to CGC to grade from a sports standpoint? I don't know that answer. That might be pulled out. But if not, that would obviously inflate their numbers and make the numbers look quite a bit better from not only a total graded number, but a sports number as well, like they're cracking the market. I don't know. So I just throw this out as details because it's an interesting conversation to have and really blows me away. But that sports card to TCG number, when I really broke down what those look like, absolutely blew me away. I wouldn't have guessed that without looking at those numbers.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one at all. And, like you, I went out to the CGC, what do you want to call it, their office production facility. Just seeing the amount of cards going through there right now, and they're grading, I think they're pushing, I think they're going, what would you say, they're at 600, 700,000 a month right now. I think they're probably going to be pushing 800 or 900,000 a month through the summer. I got to imagine those numbers are going up. I know they were building a secondary facility when we were out there anyways, or I was out there, and starting to move some of that over there. But their backlog their timing keeps creeping up. I mean, when I sent my first submission there a few months ago, they were saying that they were sitting around 50 to 60 business days. Well, that's going up now. Now, if you go onto their website, they are 90 days out, 90 business days.
Yeah, when I was in there in December, it was 3 to 5 weeks was their timeline on bulk submissions.
Yeah.
So 15 to 25 days, and now, you're right, 90 days.
Yeah, so I believe a lot of people are utilizing it. Some of it could be Fanatics. I get your point there. But I do think people are sending there. I think there's a small little groundswell of CGC fans that are going to try to push that one through. I admit, maybe it's just because I'm a fanboy. Like I'm one of them. Like I would like to see them succeed. I would like there to be some
100%.
legitimate
Same here.
Competition to PSA. Nothing against PSA. I just want to see legitimate competition in the marketplace. Right now, PSA owns Beckett and SGC. So it'd be nice to have another company outside of them that's kind of helping push and help regulate the marketplace for all of us. One other topic, because you brought this up at the very beginning, And I want to touch on this and then we can kind of wrap up here on this conversation. But the question kind of comes up, will people continue grading? And I think we found ourselves in a place in the hobby where how do we stop? Because right now, grading isn't just about what grades do we get back. And I know a lot of people grade and flip and do things like that. I mean, that part of the market is rough right now. Like, what are you buying right now to grade and flip if you're not going to get it back for 6 to 9 months? That's tough. You're tying up capital and you've got an issue there. So I think the people with that approach to their business, they're going to be questioning things a little bit. But grading helps keep the hobby legitimate as well, because the more modern our world gets, the easier it is to make copies of little pieces of cardboard with pictures on them. Yep. And there's a lot of issues with fake cards coming out, counterfeit cards coming out. And that's kind of where grading helps us. I realize even that's not
autograph
always
authentications,
perfect.
all the
Yeah. So I don't think it's going. I think it's needed these days. I mean, the vintage stuff, fortunately, I think there's a lot of safeguards against, being able to duplicate some of the vintage stuff. I know people tried for years and years and years, but it's tricky to find old paper to print on.
I'm more concerned with vintage for fraud than for me personally. Like when I buy it, I like to buy it in a slab because I know it's been authenticated.
Right. Oh yeah, no.
Because otherwise, I know there is a lot
card
of
in the slab.
Yeah, Willie Mays cards that are counterfeit, and they make the paper look aged, and even the smell and all the above. And it's like, my goodness. So.
Oh yeah, no. I think the raw ones they can certainly do that, but modern cards these days, I mean, card companies are doing the best that they can with their printing technology, but they're still printing pictures on cardboard. And, so there are people that are going to replicate that. And with the modern cards, I think there's certain outfits out there that are getting closer. So I feel like we still need grading to keep the hobby in check.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think grading's going anywhere. When I talk about grading fatigue and when I talk to other collectors, it just seems like everyone's chasing the 10. Cards just don't hold value unless it's a 10 now. I mean, if you see, even a year or two ago, a raw card price usually sold for, let's say, a PSA 7 or an 8, right? Depending on eye appeal and all that. That's usually where you would price it. So if you got a PSA 6 or below, that's where you hear people cracking slabs and pulling it out and just trying to sell it raw because it diminishes the value. But a 7 and 8 was in line. What you're seeing now and this is modern, I'm not talking about vintage cards, but modern cards, raw sells for about the same price as a 9. So the 9 has diluted down in value almost to the same price as a raw card now. And then where you get the big premium is obviously on a 10. So people just 10 chase. So they pack pull, rip a bunch of wax. Wax prices have obviously gone way up because of this. They pack and then they just bulk submit and chase those 10s. So I think the fatigue is, what I was saying is it's going to get back to, now that values are up and it's so much more expensive to slab in a PSA slab, are we going to see slabbed product, that 7, 8, 9s gain in value a little bit more? Are they a good value to buy right now, I guess is what I'm saying. Are we going to see those climb from a resale standpoint and close that gap on what a 10 is? I don't know, but for me, knowing that, man, to reslab this 9, it's going to cost $80, and I could pick it up for $40 or $50. I mean, right there, it just creates a more perceived value from that standpoint, right there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out long term, and then to see if some of these other carriers can close the gap on PSA, just because people are going to get more comfortable seeing maybe some different slabs at the card shows and these, on people's displays, rather than just being dominated by PSA and raw cards right now.
I think you bring up a good point. This is kind of the other topic when we were talking at the very beginning here that I sort of wanted to talk about, and you were like, rightly so, saying, no, let's stay on topic with the grading. But something I want to get into in the next episode here is talking about modern cards and the value of modern cards. And for people that are looking to collect versus invest long term, what should they be looking to purchase? And when you're looking at, I used this example with somebody else earlier today, but like a Justin Jefferson rookie card versus, something that is vintage. What should people be looking for? So we don't need to talk about that now, but I would like to bring that up in the next episode, especially along with those different grades, whether it's the 8s, the 9s, the 10s, the modern cards, the vintage. I think that'd be a fun conversation to have this next go around. But for right now, I think we're coming right up here on a half hour. And I think we covered a lot of really good ground here today. And it's an interesting topic, interesting conversation. authentication. So anybody watching this, I would love to see some comments about what you think about all of this, whether you were on YouTube or you're catching a reel on Instagram, whatever it is. I'd love to get your thoughts. And then we are just kind of launching this channel here, so if you can like, subscribe, and share this anywhere and everywhere, we would greatly appreciate it. So you got anything else you want to close out with, Erik? Or are we good to go?
No, it's fun. I'm going to a card show here in Northern California this coming weekend. So this is absolutely something I'm going to be looking for, and I'm going to be talking to a lot of the dealers just on the grading side, because this is an important topic here that's going to carry through the summer into the nationals and all that. Is this where this is going to go, and like you said, where to collect. I'm laughing here because I just recently picked up. I'm a Giants fan. A couple of case hit Bryce Eldridge cards, but do I send these in and let them sit somewhere for 6-9 months? I mean, he just got called up a couple weeks ago, so it's the whole grading things.
You
or do we just get back
time
to
on those? So that's
or do we just get back to just enjoying raw cards for what it's for? So and not worry so much on the graded side. So
by the time you get them back, it'll be ready for spring training. So
or he'll be 3 or 4 years and maybe traded by then. So who knows?
There you go. All right. Well, appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.